So we will continue on the kinds of corporation. So for this session, we will discuss the following. Okay, corporations classified according to their organizers, according to their functions, as to the governing laws, as to their legal status. Okay, what is a corporation by Stoppel? Although this is not really a corporation, corporation by prescription, classification of corporations according to the existence of stocks, classification of corporations as to laws of incorporation, as to number of components, and other corporations. Okay. Now, I highlighted the kinds of corporations covered by the bar syllabus, namely stock corporation, non-stock corporation, one-person corporation, closed corporation, educational corporation, and religious corporation. I just classified them in this way so that we can really discuss them in light with the usual way we categorize corporations. Now, I'll discuss the other kinds or classifications in passing as prelude to the other kinds of corporations as per bar syllabus, and also to put these corporations in their proper light. So there are different ways in classifying corporations, okay? And this is just one of the many ways. So corporation could be categorized based on their organizers. So a corporation could be public or private depending on the organizers. So if it was the government that organized the corporation, then it is a public corporation. And if it is organized by private individuals or entities, then it's a private corporation. Now, if a corporation also has as its purpose the performance of public functions, then it's a public corporation. And if it is intended for profit or, well, private functions, it's a private corporation. And as to the governing law, as we discussed last time, if a corporation is created under a public law, then or a special law, then a corporation is a public corporation. While if it is created under the general law, meaning the Revised Corporation Code of the Philippines, then it is a private law. Okay, with an exception in the case of GOCCs, which are created through a special law, but they are, as per jurisprudence, classified as private corporations. And then as to legal status, a corporation could be, well, could be a de jure corporation or a de facto corporation. Okay. Now, what is a de jure corporation? A de jure corporation is one that has fully complied with the requirements of incorporation under the code. So there is full compliance of all the requirements under the law. As such, it enjoys full legal personality and corporate powers for the issuance of its certificate of incorporation by SEC. Under Section 18 of the Revised Corporation Code, a corporation becomes a de jure corporation upon compliance with all legal requirements, including the submission of articles of incorporation and other necessary documents under the law to SEC. And once the SEC issues the certificate of incorporation, then the corporation now acquires juridical personality and is considered a de jure corporation. So if you look at the provision, a corporation is considered de jure when it complies with the process. Full compliance brings about a de jure corporation. Now we have jurisprudential standards for this, de jure corporation, and is usually discussed in relation to a de facto corporation. Okay? So a de jure corporation is distinguished from a de facto corporation which operates with some compliance deficiencies but is still recognized under certain conditions. What this means is, well, a de facto corporation has has the same opportunities as a de jure corporation. It is treated as just like a de jure corporation. Okay, it can perform corporate powers. Okay, the public can transact with a de facto corporation in the same way that it transacts with the de jure corporation. Now, Section 19 of the code protects, okay, despite deficiency in compliance, de facto corporations from collateral attacks. So Section 19 of the code protects de facto corporations. And this protection, okay, is crafted in a way that the only remedy or the only legal proceeding where the status of a de facto corporation could be attacked is through a quo warranto proceeding initiated by the Solicitor General. So this is another way of saying that a de facto corporation will enjoys the same rights and privileges, powers, and authority as that of a de jure corporation. Only that its personality, its franchise, could be challenged through a quo warranto proceeding by the Solicitor General. Now, what is this quo warranto remedy? This remedy is covered by Section 19 of the Revised Corporation Code and by Rule 66 of the Rules of Court. Okay, this remedy allows the Solicitor General or other authorized parties to question the validity of the corporation's existence if it is alleged to have been improperly formed or is exercising corporate powers without proper authority. So take note of this, that the party that will initiate this remedy is the state through the Solicitor General. Now, a private party, meaning a non-state party, can also initiate, but under the imprimatur, the written imprimatur of the Solicitor General. Otherwise, the quo warranto proceeding will be dismissed for lack of personality to sue. Okay. Now, jurisprudence. Again, the Ago Realty and Development Corporation case. Supreme Court emphasized the importance of compliance with the requirements prescribed by the code in order to acquire a de jure status. Okay, this case highlighted the procedural requirements for derivative suits and the role of the board in corporate governance. In Marasigan versus Marasigan, Okay, Supreme Court discussed the governance of corporations under the code, specifically on the requirements for valid meetings and elections. And by consequence, okay, it also discussed the need to comply with corporate bylaws and articles of incorporation to avoid disputes. Okay. So there is full compliance by a de jure corporation. And for a de facto corporation, there is deficiency in the compliance. Now, to expound more on the discussion, okay, on de facto corporations, okay, again, a de facto corporation is an entity that operates as a corporation, as we said a while ago. It acts just like a de jure corporation. And this is despite not fully complying with the legal requirements for incorporation. Okay. Now take note of this, while it lacks de jure corporate status, it is recognized as a corporation in circumstances, most especially when there is a need to protect third parties who have dealt with the corporation in good faith. Now, what are the requirements so that there is a de facto status of a corporation? Number one, a valid law under which incorporation is possible. Number two, a bona fide attempt to incorporate under the law. And number three, actual use of corporate powers. So these are indispensable requirements. Absent one requirement, then a corporation is not even a de facto corporation. And the law emphasizes that the filing of articles of incorporation and the issuance of a certificate of incorporation are essential for the existence of a de facto corporation. So, we cannot consider a corporation as a de facto corporation if in the very first place, it was not issued a certificate of incorporation. Okay? Because the requisites, okay, provide that there must be a bona fide attempt to incorporate under the law. So if the corporation, this perceived corporation did not submit to SEC articles of incorporation and or it was not issued a certificate of incorporation by SEC, then it did not comply with this requirement, a bona fide attempt to incorporate under the law. In this case, Missionary Sisters of Our Lady of Fatima versus Alzona 2018, Supreme Court clarified that a corporation cannot be considered de facto unless it has filed its articles of incorporation and received a certificate of incorporation from the SEC. So the court ruled in this case that the petitioner, okay, was not a de facto corporation at the time of the transaction because SEC had not yet issued its certificate of incorporation. Okay, so that's the minimum requirement so that a corporation at least is a de facto corporation. Nag-submit ng articles of incorporation at naka-receive ng certificate of incorporation from SEC. Okay. Now, what if a corporation is not even a de facto corporation? Will it be, exonerated from liability in its transaction with the public? Okay, in this case, and like in previous bar questions, kung hindi pasok ang concept ng de facto corporation, these individuals projecting themselves as a corporation who have not complied with the bare requirements, the minimum requirements, could still be held liable under the doctrine of corporation by Stoppel. So under this doctrine of corporation by Stoppel, even if the group of individuals are not really, given a franchise to operate as a corporation for purposes of enforcing rights and to make them liable, then they are considered as a corporation. Corporation by Stoppel. So in this case, the court highlighted the doctrine of corporation by Stoppel, which applies when parties act as if a corporation exists, even if it does not. Okay? And the goal there is to prevent unjust enrichment or harm to third parties. So again, okay, yung sa corporation by Stoppel, that is not really a classification of corporation, but it's the it's the means of the law to enforce liability. Okay? Now let's talk more about the doctrine of corporation by Stoppel. As provided in section 20 of the code, okay, the doctrine prevents individuals or entities from denying the existence of a corporation when they have acted as if it were duly incorporated. This doctrine is rooted in equity, ensuring fairness in dealings, and preventing unjust enrichment. So these are the, um, theoretical roots of the doctrine. Okay, so a group of individuals or entities cannot deny their existence as a corporation, even if they are not a corporation, for purposes of, you know, enforcing equity, fairness in dealings, and to prevent unjust enrichment. Jurisprudence has consistently upheld this principle, applying it to both parties who transact with a non-existent corporation and those who act on behalf of such an entity. Okay. So yung mga nakikipag-transact sa corporation and those acting as a corporation, they will be bound by this doctrine for purposes of enforcing rights and for making the liable party liable. Okay? If we connect this to the concept of separate personality, di ba, there is always this barrier between the corporation and the people behind the corporation. But if a corporation does not really exist and people are acting as if it exists, okay, for purposes of enforcing rights and liabilities, this, conceptual corporation, okay, is born, okay, out of estoppel from the acts of the parties. Now, Section 20, okay, this provision states that individuals who act as a corporation without proper authority are liable as general partners for debts and liabilities incurred. Conversely, those who transact with such an ostensible corporation cannot deny its existence to avoid obligations. Okay, we mentioned already about equity, okay, and the prevention of unjust enrichment. And this particular section talks about the doctrine of corporation by Stoppel to achieve that purpose. Okay, so this is the conceptual idea. If there is no corporation and you pretend that there is a corporation, and this corporation transacts with the public, okay, the people behind this imaginary corporation cannot later on evade liability by saying that there was no corporation. Okay? So the law provides this mechanism to protect, okay, possible victims of those impersonating themselves as corporations. Vice versa rin po. Vice versa, if individuals act like they are corporations and they believe that they are a corporation, and then third persons transact with them, then later on, nagkaroon ng liability tong mga third persons. Pwede bang sabihin nung third persons hindi na sila magbayad? Kasi yung corporation, itong mga tao na to ay inexistent. Well, the answer is no. They cannot use that argument because we have this provision on corporation by estoppel. Okay? So the purpose of this is to make a non-existent but apparently or an ostensibly a corporation, okay, a means of enforcing obligations. So the law ensures that parties cannot escape liability or obligations by claiming the lack of corporate personality. Okay? Bautista versus Manila Seedling Bank Foundation Incorporated, 2024. The Supreme Court emphasized that the doctrine of corporation by estoppel applies to prevent injustice. So in this case, the Quezon City government was stopped from questioning the corporate capacity of MSBFI due to its prior dealings with the entity. So yung Quezon City government, nagkaroon ng obligation dito sa corporation, MSBFI, pero parang ayaw na nilang magbayad kay MSBFI kasi may question dun sa existence ni MSBFI, okay, the Manila Seedling Bank Foundation Incorporated. So can the LGU raise as a defense for non-payment the fact that the creditor is not really a corporation? The answer is no. Hindi pwede yan. Okay, to prevent injustice on the part of MSBFI, it must be considered as a corporation, although a corporation by estoppel to enforce the liability of Quezon City government. Okay? Missionary Sisters of Our Lady of Fatima versus Alzona. Okay, the court upheld the validity of a donation to a non-registered corporation. Imagine that. You donate something to a non-registered corporation. Okay? Eh kung non-registered yung corporation na yan, di dapat walang obligation yung donor na ibigay yung property. But because of its dealings with the Missionary Sisters of Our Lady of Fatima, Alzona is now stopped from denying the existence of that corporation, even if in law, strictly, okay, Missionary Sisters of Our Lady of Fatima is not even a de facto corporation. Okay. So walang corporation talaga. But in line with justice and equity, they should be considered as a corporation for purposes of preventing injustice. A Lim versus Philippine Fishing Gear Industries Incorporated, the court held that individuals acting as a corporation without proper authority are personally liable for obligations incurred, as they cannot use the lack of corporate personality as a defense. Okay. So as far as third parties are concerned, okay, pwede nilang i-enforce yung liability as against these individuals who present themselves as corporations And the enforcement of the liability is not in the sense that there is really a corporation, but to make the individuals behind it personally liable. So ma-enforce pa rin yung obligation, okay, involving transactions against this purported corporation kahit na hindi nag-exist yung corporation na yan, but the way it is done is by making the individuals behind it personally liable. Examples, an application of the doctrine of corporation by Stoppel. Okay. First situation, liability of individuals acting as a corporation. This is the, the classic meaning of corporation by Stoppel. Okay. Individuals who acted as a corporation without proper incorporation. Hindi nila pwedeng sabihin na wala na silang babayaran kasi wala talagang corporation na nag-exist. The law demands is they will be treated as a corporation and they will be held personally liable for the debts incurred by this purported corporation. Okay. So this demonstrates that those who assume corporate powers without authority cannot escape liability by raising the absence of a corporation. Number two, estoppel against third parties. So dito naman, hindi yung mga tao behind the corporation ang liable, kundi isang third party transacting with this corporation. Like in the case of Missionary Sisters of Our Lady of Fatima versus Alzona. So meron pa ring meron pa ring donation, and the same should be enforced. The obligation must be done. Okay, because Alzona, because of its prior dealings, is now stopped, okay, from questioning the corporate existence of the Doni Missionary Sisters of Our Lady of Fatima. And like in the case we mentioned a while ago, Bautista versus Manila Seedling Foundation Incorporated, okay, Mayor Bautista, okay, yung city of Quezon City government, eh, kahit government pa yan, pwede silang ma-applyan ng doctrine of estoppel. So hindi nila pwedeng, even if the government, okay, questions the, the existence of a corporation, if through its prior dealings, it considered that company as a corporation, then obligations must be enforced under its transactions with that entity. So the government, not even the government can evade its liabilities, okay, by raising lack of corporate existence. Corporation by prescription. Is there such a thing as a corporation by prescription under the revised corporation code? Okay, wala tayong provision on corporation by prescription under the new code. Okay. In fact, the prevailing rule is walang corporation na makikreate kung hindi dumaan sa proseso. And you can deduce that from the case of Ago Realty and Development Corporation versus Ago. Okay? Because corporations are creatures of law. Legal fiction yan. At nagkakaroon lang ng legal fiction if there is compliance with the legal process. However, there is one particular kind of corporation by prescription that is widely accepted. Okay? Roman Catholic Church is a corporation by prescription. So talagang exception to, it's a rare instance where a corporation is recognized as such even if it did not go through the legal process. The Roman Catholic Church was not formally organized but has been duly recognized by immemorial usage as a corporation with rights and duties maintainable at law. So that's the only exception. General rule, hindi pwede to. Kasi ang corporation is a creature of law, dadaan dapat yan ng proseso. Roman Catholic Church, that's the single exception to a corporation by prescription. Now, corporations could be classified based on the existence of stocks or shares. So if a corporation has a capital divided into stocks and the corporation declares dividends out of these shares, then that is a stock corporation. And if not, it's a non-stock corporation. Stock corporation is basically, created for profit. A corporation that is not created for profit is a non-stock corporation. Now, let's look in detail under the code what is a stock corporation. A stock corporation is one with capital stock divided into shares and authorized to distribute dividends to shareholders based on their shareholder standings. So let's look at the key features of a stock corporation. Okay, first, ownership is represented by shares of stock. Second, shareholders are entitled to dividends from surplus profits. Now, it's it's wrong to simply define a stock corporation as one where its capital is divided into shares of stock. Hindi pwedeng mag-end lang dun. Otherwise, kung yun ang definition ng stock corporation, it's not compliant with the definition of the law, even in the old code. Okay? Dapat, aside from presence of uh, stocks or shares, the shareholders must also be entitled to dividends. Okay, that's another important feature of a stock corporation. Now, going into the shares, okay, yung shares sa isang stock corporation. Shares may be classified into different types with corresponding rights, privileges, or restrictions as may be specified by the incorporators and later on by the stockholders in their articles of incorporation or amended articles of incorporation. Okay, so shares may further be classified. Now, voting rights are generally attached to shares. That's the general rule. Pag may share ka, if you own a share, then that share is presumed to have voting rights. So kung makareceive ka ng common share, may voting rights yan. Now, the exception to this rule is when the shares, as per the articles of incorporation, they are classified as preferred shares, may restrictions na dyan, or redeemable shares. Okay? So kung ang classification ng shares ay hindi common shares, but preferred or redeemable, then they are exceptions to the existence of voting rights. Now, we mentioned a while ago that stock corporations, okay, entitle stockholders to dividends. Okay? Under Section 35, one of the powers of a stock corporation is to issue shares, declare dividends, and engage in lawful business activities. So what would be examples of stock corporations? Yung mga manufacturing or trading companies. Okay, stock corporations yan. Okay? Corporations engage in exploration of natural resources, mining, stock corporations yung mga yan. Banks are stock corporations. Okay. Now, this case, clarifies the nature of a stock corporation. National Food Authority versus City Government of Tagum, 2024. A Supreme Court emphasized that stock corporations must have capital stock divided into shares, that's one, and that corporation must be authorized to distribute dividends. So, in this case, the court clarified that entities without stockholders or voting shares, okay, wala silang stock holdings, wala ring voting shares, such as the NFA, cannot be classified as stock corporations. Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas versus COA 2021. The court reiterated that stock corporations must meet two criteria. Okay? Number one, capital stock divided into shares. Yan yung alam po natin. At dapat hindi natin kalimutan yung pangalawa. The corporation must be authorized to distribute dividends to stockholders. Okay? Entities failing to meet these two criteria are not considered stock corporations. Okay, how about non-stock corporation? Definition. A non-stock corporation is an entity organized for purposes other than profit. So profit is not the main purpose why a non-stock corporation is organized. Okay? Furthermore, no part of its income is distributable as dividends to its members, trustees, or officers. So para saan yung profit? Profit must be used to further the corporation's purpose. Okay? The non-stock corporation is different from stock corporation in terms of their structure, their purpose, and income distribution. So what is usually the purpose of a non-stock corporation? Okay? Typically, non-stock corporations are organized for charitable, religious, educational, professional, cultural, or similar non-profit purposes. Specific examples, yung mga foundations, civic organizations, and professional associations. In this 2012 case, Republic of the Philippines versus City of Parañaque, Supreme Court clarified that non-stock corporations are organized for specific purposes. Okay? So, kung makita na po natin na the purpose of that corporation is charitable or educational activities, okay, and their income is used solely for these purposes, then they are non-stock corporation. So, may income ba ang mga non-stock corporation? Of course, meron. Malalaki rin po. Okay? Especially educational corporations. But, okay, under the law and per jurisprudence, their income is used solely for these purposes. Okay? So do not forget about the twin requirements for the existence of a stock corporation, okay, and the non-profit nature of non-stock corporation. Now, we already discussed this one. If a corporation is incorporated or established, okay, through Philippine laws, then it's a domestic corporation. If it is incorporated here and it is SEC that issued its certificate of incorporation, it's a domestic corporation. Otherwise, it's a foreign corporation. Now, a corporation could further be classified according to the number of components, okay? Meaning according to the number of individuals behind the corporation. Say a corporation could be a corporation aggregate if it is composed of two or more, okay, individuals. A corporation could also be considered as a corporation sole if it is composed only of one individual. Okay? And then we have under the revised corporation code, the so-called one-person corporation. Now the question is, what's the difference between a corporation sole and a one-person corporation? Well, one big difference is a one-person corporation, although it has only, okay, one component, it is a stock corporation. While a corporation sole is a non-stock corporation. It's a religious corporation. The usual example here is yung religious corporation. Here, for example, in the Archdiocese of Tuguegarao. The Archdiocese of Tuguegarao is a corporation sole and is composed solely by the Archbishop. Okay? Corporation sole. Non-stock yan. Okay? It's not intended for profit. But a one-person corporation is a stock corporation. Its shares are divided into stocks, or its capital is divided into stocks. And there is only one stockholder. And the purpose is for profit. One-person corporation. So what are examples of corporation aggregate? So, well, it could be a stock or non-stock for as long as its stockholders or members are more than one. Now, let's look at how the revised corporation code explains a one-person corporation. So, definition, a corporation with a single stockholder who may be natural person, trust, or estate is a one-person corporation. Key features of a one-person corporation. First, it has no minimum capital stock requirement. The sole stockholder acts as both incorporator and director. Kasi mag-isa niya lang. And because of the singularity of the stockholder, it has a simplified governance structure. Now, there is a prohibition. These entities, banks, insurance companies, and public utilities cannot form a one-person corporation. So this innovation, okay, this one-person corporation simplifies corporate formation and governance. Dati ang hirap mag-establish ng corporation. But now, in less than one day, you can make a corporation by starting with a one-person corporation. Okay? Now, is it possible? Okay? Or is the concept of a one-person corporation is still governed by the doctrine of separate personality? Applicable pa rin ba yung separate personality if the stockholder is only one? The answer, of course, is yes. There's still uh, a separate personality between the corporation, the one-person corporation, and the single stockholder. Separate pa rin ang personality nila, and therefore, the single stockholder, for as long as it transacts in good faith, and for as long as its assets are distinguishable from that of the OPC, they cannot be held personally liable for the liability of the OPC. Now, under Section 130, okay, that reinforces the doctrine of separate personality and allows the application of piercing the veil, provides that the single stockholder must prove that the OPC's property is separate from from his personal property to maintain limited liability. So yan lang ang kailangan gawin ng single stockholder para operational yung doctrine of separate personality. Siguraduhin niya na yung personal property niya, his assets, okay, are separate from the assets of the one-person corporation. Okay? So that the limited liability rule will apply. Otherwise, okay, the doctrine of piercing the veil will set in. The stockholder may be held personally liable for corporate debts. I'll send a separate video on one-person corporation. But for now, okay, so that we can finish the topics, I think that discussion would suffice already. Okay. Close corporation. A close corporation is one whose articles of incorporation restrict. Okay, that's the keyword. May restriction. Pag close corporation ang pinag-uusapan, there is a restriction, okay, on the number of shareholders. Dapat hindi yan lumampas ng 20. Should not be more than 20. Another restriction is prohibition on public offering of shares. And it imposes restrictions on share transfers. Kaya tinawag na closed corporation yan. Kumbaga, ayaw nilang magpapasok ng bago. Okay? So this is usually the type of corporation involving families. Okay? Take note again of the restrictions. The shareholders cannot exceed 20. There is prohibition on public offering of shares. At saka, hindi pwedeng i-transfer yung mga shares. There is restriction on the transfer of shares. Okay, so this structure, this closed structure, allows for more flexible management. Okay, often directly by the stockholders and is governed by specific provisions in the revised corporation code, specifically Title 12. So kung ganun, yung closed corporation, halos ayaw magpapasok ng bago, ang key features nito ay parang partnership siya. So closed corporation, parang partnership. Okay? And to some extent, there is fiduciary relationship among the uh, stockholders. Shares, shareholders often manage the corporation directly, like how partners manage the partnership. Now, can banks, corporations engage in mining and public utilities form this kind of stock corporations? Pwede ba silang mag-form ng closed corporation? Banks, mining, and public utilities? The answer is no. Okay, bawal. These certain industries are not allowed to form closed corporations. In Marasigan versus Marasigan, 2023, the court emphasized that closed corporations are unique, okay, because stock ownership is often identical with management. Stock ownership is often identical with management. Bakit? Ba't kakaiba to? Why is this set up? Stock ownership means management. In other stock corporations, your ownership of shares does not mean, direct management of the corporation. Because to manage the corporation, you must be elected as a director. But in this particular kind of stock corporation, closed corporation, pag may shares ka, automatic, you directly manage the corporation. Okay? Because of the limited number of stockholders and the other restrictions. So this allows stockholders to directly manage corporate affairs, unlike in regular corporations where the board of directors, okay, represents the stockholders. So ownership is not synonymous to management in other stock corporations. Kasi kailangan pa ng directors who will manage. But in closed corporation, what makes this unique? Yung pag-own mo ng stocks, that is identical with management already. In Section 99 of the RCC, okay, this permits stockholders to enter into binding agreements regarding corporate management, voting rights, and other matters, even if such agreements restrict the powers of the board of directors. Okay? In closed corporations, this is part of the flexibility granted to this kind of corporation. Now, the other kinds of corporations mentioned in the syllabus, educational corporations and religious corporations, are considered special corporations. Okay? Special corporations to mga to, educational and religious corporations. Educational corporations are either non-stock, okay, or stock corporations organized for educational purposes. That is as per Section 105 of the RCC. Educational corporations are governed by the provisions of the RCC and also by special laws. Non-stock educational corporations must have a board of trustees with terms staggered. to ensure continuity. So take note of that, the educational corporations under the RCC are governed by both the RCC, the general provisions of RCC, and by special laws. Okay? And take note also that educational corporations may be organized either as a stock corporation or a non-stock corporation. Okay? So what are examples of educational corporations? We have in Tuguegarao a lot of private schools. Okay? Colleges and universities are educational corporations. Now for non-stock educational corporations, they must have a board of trustees consisting of 5 to 15 members in multiples of 5. Okay? Trustees are classified to ensure staggered terms with one-fifth of their terms expiring annually unless otherwise provided in the articles or bylaws. How about a corporation sole? Okay? Sometimes a corporation sole is used by religious organizations for educational purposes. Like in Cagayan, okay, yung Archdiocese of Tuguegarao, the educational schools owned by the Archdiocese are educational corporations, but in fact, they are part of this corporation sole called the Archdiocese of Tuguegarao. Okay? Okay. In Barba versus Liceo de Cagayan University, 2012, Supreme Court clarified that corporate officers in educational institutions organized as non-stock corporations, okay, are those elected or appointed by the Board of Trustees or as provided in the bylaws. So if you look at how a non-stock educational corporations, okay, uh, create corporate officers, it is through the Board of Trustees. Okay? Yung Board of Trustees, they either elect or appoint corporate officers. Another way of doing that is through their corporate bylaws. Okay? So, corporate officers or corporate offices may be created through corporate bylaws. And lastly, religious corporations, another special corporation. A religious corporation may be classified as corporation sole or religious societies. So you can branch out religious corporations into two. Okay? It could be a corporation sole or a religious society. So what is a corporation sole again? It is formed by a religious leader to manage the affairs and properties of a religious denomination. That is in section 108. And it's called a corporation sole because it's the religious leader that is the corporation. Okay? Pag-isa niya lang. Okay? The only uh, member, okay? The only composition of a corporation sole is the religious leader behind it. How about religious societies? Well, this is another kind of religious corporation composed of two or more persons for religious purposes. Now, a religious corporation is governed by the provisions on non-stock corporations. Now, can a corporation sole be converted into a corporation aggregate? In IEMELIF Incorporated versus Lazaro 2010, Supreme Court allowed the conversion of a corporation sole into a corporation aggregate. And this conversion is done through amendment of its articles of incorporation. What are the provisions governing religious corporations under the RCC? Okay. Chapter 2, sections 107 to 116. Now, take note also of this case, 2022 case. Superior General of the Religious of the Virgin Mary, RVM, versus Republic of the Philippines. The Supreme Court emphasized that religious corporations, like other private corporations, are prohibited from acquiring alienable lands of the public domain under the Constitution, although they may hold private lands if acquired through lawful means. So private corporations, including religious corporations, cannot acquire alienable lands of the public domain. Ang pwede lang nilang acquire ay private lands. Okay? So it cannot apply for a free patent. Okay? These are no longer included in the bar exam. Okay, so we're done generally on topic number 2. Okay, so we'll have a 5-minute break, and after this, we'll proceed to topic number 3, incorporation and organization. Okay, see you in. So the next topic is incorporation and organization. We'll discuss the following: number and qualifications of incorporators, a capitalization, corporate term, classification of shares, articles of incorporation, corporate name, and commencement of corporate existence. I will forgo as it's not part of the bar syllabus by laws, corporate officers. We already discussed this nonetheless. De facto corporation and corporation by estoppel. Okay. Number and qualifications of incorporators. Under the RCC, the number and qualifications of incorporators have been modernized to allow greater flexibility in corporate formation. As we already said, a corporation may now be formed by one person, known as one-person corporation, or by multiple incorporators. This is in line with ease of doing business. Okay. Now, who is an incorporator? Okay, who is an incorporator? An incorporator under the code refers to a person or entity who is named in the articles of incorporation as one of the original, excuse me, one of the original members forming the corporation. Incorporators must meet specific qualifications and are essential in the initial establishment of a corporation. So if you look at the definition, what makes an incorporator, unique? Siya yung una, okay, na tao or entity na makikita sa isang corporation. In fact, the name of an incorporator is inscribed. It's written in the articles of incorporation submitted to SEC. So, an incorporator, therefore, is one of the original members forming the corporation. So, ano yung mga qualifications ng isang incorporator para maging incorporator siya? Okay? So, if you look at Section 10, says incorporators may be natural persons, partnerships, associations, or corporations. So if we talk about incorporators, they are not limited to natural persons under the RCC. So yung mga unang members, okay, or stockholders ng isang corporation could also be partnerships, associations, or other corporations. Okay? And under Section 10, these are the qualifications. If the incorporator is a natural person, then he must be capacitated in the sense that he is of legal age. Okay? Each incorporator of a stock corporation must own or subscribe to at least one share of the capital stock. If what is to be formed is a stock corporation, then those who initiate the incorporation process, yung mga original na stockholders, must be a subscriber or owner of at least one share. Now, in this case, SEC versus AZ 1731, Realty Incorporated 2022, the court emphasized the importance of compliance with the qualifications of incorporators. The inclusion of a deceased person as an incorporator was deemed erroneous by the court, and the corporation was ordered to amend its articles of incorporation to remove the deceased incorporator. Okay, so you cannot include in the articles of incorporation a deceased person as is not qualified under the RCC. This is without prejudice, of course, to filing uh, criminal charges against those who falsified the document. This case highlights the strict adherence required to the qualifications and validity of incorporators. The court also clarified that incorporators must submit truthful and accurate information, as submitting spurious or falsified documents may lead to penalties or revocation of the corporation's registration. So aside from possible charges here, okay, the SEC, okay, may revoke the corporation's registration for providing erroneous information. So yan ang incorporator. Now, how do we distinguish an incorporator from a corporator? Okay, magkaiba po yung dalawa. An incorporator is a specific type of corporator. So mas broad ang meaning ng corporator kaysa sa incorporator. So an incorporator is also a corporator, but this kind of corporator is explicitly named in the Articles of Incorporation as one of the original founders of the corporation. While all incorporators are corporators, not all corporators are incorporators. So this difference would be useful in distinguishing the roles and responsibilities of corporators from incorporators in a corporation. Section 5 of the RCC defines corporators, okay, without in, okay, corporators lang, as those who compose a corporation, whether as stockholders in a stock corporation or as members in a non-stock corporation. On the other hand, incorporators with IN are those stockholders or members specifically mentioned in the Articles of Incorporation as originally forming and composing the corporation and who are signatories of the Articles of Incorporation. Original incorporators, the original corporators therefore are called incorporators. Now, how do we distinguish incorporators from stockholders and members? Okay, again, incorporators are the persons who initially forms and composes a corporation by signing the Articles of Incorporation. In contrast, a stockholder or a member may join the corporation only after the corporation has been formed and their names, okay, may not exist or may not be found in the Articles of Incorporation. So a stockholder or a member does not necessarily need to be an incorporator. How about the difference between an incorporator from directors and trustees? Okay. An incorporator, as we said again a while ago, kita yan sa Articles of Incorporation, yung pangalan nila. While directors or trustees are individuals elected. to manage the corporation's affairs. So the distinction lies in their roles, the time of their involvement in the corporation, and responsibilities within the corporate structure. Okay, this difference between incorporator and corporate officers. Corporate officers are individuals, okay, either elected or appointed to specific provisions or positions as provided in the bylaws of the corporation. Again, their difference lies in their roles, responsibilities, okay, jurisdiction over disputes, okay. So magkaiba sila, okay. A corporate officer need not be an incorporator. An incorporator need not be a corporate officer. Magkaiba po yung role nila. How about an incorporator from a promoter? Diba? Makikita mo rin yung promoter at the uh, time the corporation is being formed. So what's the difference between them? Incorporator, in paper, makikita mo yung pangalan nila sa Articles of Incorporation. While a promoter, hindi kailangang magpakita yung pangalan nila sa Articles of Incorporation because they are distinguished by their role. A promoter is someone who undertakes the preliminary steps to organize a corporation but not necessarily part of the corporation's formal structure. So sila yung tumulong sa paggawa ng corporation but not necessarily the ones who will be incorporators where their names appear in the articles of incorporation. Okay. There is no express definition of promoters under the RCC. Okay, but they are generally understood as individuals who undertake the initial steps to form a corporation. So ano ba yung ginagawa nila? Hindi naman sila incorporators, pero paano sila tumutulong sa pag-form ng corporation? Well, promoters secure capital. They may help in drafting necessary documents for incorporation, and isa rin to sa pinaka-important na role nila, sila ang naghahanap ng incorporators. Sila naghahanap ng investors ng corporation. So, promoters are not necessarily part of the corporation's formal structure unless by voluntary decision, and if they are qualified, they they elect to be an incorporator also. Okay? So promoters are recognized as individuals who act in a preparatory capacity. They are not automatically part of the corporation unless they meet the qualifications of incorporators or stockholders. A number of incorporators. Section 10. Basta hindi lang lumampas ng 15. Yan ang requirement. There is no minimum for the number of persons who will form a corporation. There is only a maximum, 15. Eh dati 5 to 15. Ngayon, 1 to 15 na. Qualifications of incorporators. Incorporators must be of legal age. Okay? For stock corporations, each incorporator must own or subscribe to at least one share of the capital stock. A natural persons who are licensed to participate or to practice a profession, as well as partnerships or associations for such purpose, are prohibited from forming a corporation unless otherwise allowed by special laws. So if the purpose of these natural persons is to establish a corporation for purposes of practicing, okay, their profession, it's prohibited by law. So I repeat, ano bang qualifications ng incorporators? How can individuals start, or who, okay, who could start, okay, a corporation? Unang qualification is dependent on the kind of incorporator. If natural person yan, he must be of legal age. Now, depending on the kind of corporation, may qualification rin. For stock corporations, ang requirement, ownership or subscription to at least one share. Okay? So kung stock corporation yung buuin, hindi kailangan na natural person yung incorporators. Pwede namang partnership or corporation mismo ang stockholders. Okay? But what is required only is that incorporator or those incorporators must own or subscribe to at least one share of the capital stock. Okay, now let's talk about capitalization. Again, the RCC, okay, uh, made some significant changes to the corporate capitalization rules in the old code. It removed the minimum capital stock requirement for stock corporations, except when specifically required by special laws. Okay? The purpose of this reform is to encourage ease of doing business and promote corporate flexibility. So wala nang minimum capital requirement for stock corporations. So this provision eliminates the previous barrier for small and medium-sized enterprises to incorporate. Now, as to the process of increasing capital stock or decreasing capital stock, you have Section 37, okay, of RCC, which provides the procedure for increasing or decreasing capital stock. Okay, what the provision requires is approval by the board of directors and two-thirds of the outstanding capital stock at a stockholders meeting. So if you break down the requirement for increase and decrease, you need these things. Number one, you need approval from the board of directors. Second, consent from stockholders. Okay? Paanong consent yan? Okay, the consent is manifested by the approval of two-thirds of the outstanding capital stock. And third, okay, this corporate action of increasing or decreasing capital stock must be done in a stockholders meeting. Okay. Now, there are subsequent compliances. So, pag napalitan yung articles of incorporation due to the increase or decrease in the capital stock, there are documentary requirements or there are submissions that must be done to uh, the Securities and Exchange Commission. Okay? May isa-submit ka sa SEC. Now, how do you pay this tax? What are the acceptable forms of consideration for the issuance of stocks? Section 61 provides the acceptable forms. It could be cash, property, labor, services, and other generally accepted forms. Okay? So hindi lang pera ang pwedeng consideration, but these other forms, property, labor, even services, okay, could be accepted as payment for the value of the stocks. Okay, now let's talk about corporate term. Again, there are changes to this topic, okay, because the RCC, okay, now provides perpetual existence as the default corporate term. Perpetual existence na ang default corporate term. And the only exception is if the corporation chooses, okay, another term as expressly stated in their articles of incorporation. Now, the purpose of this amendment or this revision, okay, is the simplification of corporate operations and reduction of administrative burdens. Kasi matrabaho po ang mag-renew ng corporate term. Okay? Jurisprudence has clarified the application of this provision, particularly in cases involving extension or revival of corporate term. Now, what is the legal basis for perpetual existence? Section 11 of the RCC. It provides that corporations now have perpetual existence unless their articles of incorporation specify a fixed term. Now, this perpetual existence, this rule, okay, applies to both new corporations, meaning corporations formed under the RCC, and those already incorporated in the old code. So kung walang ginawa yung mga corporations created under the old code, then ang default existence nila is perpetual existence. Now, corporations with a fixed term may extend or revive their corporate term by amending their articles of incorporation subject to the approval of SEC. So yung mga pumili ng fixed term, they did not avail perpetual existence. These corporations can extend, or if they forgot or overlooked, okay, documentary requirements or compliance with renewal, revive their corporate term. Okay? Revival restores all rights, privileges, and liabilities, okay, existing prior to expiration. So take note, hindi lang yung rights ng corporation, yung powers ng corporation ang mare-restore if a corporation seeks revival, but also all its liabilities before the expiration of its term. Now, in First Philippine Holdings Corporation versus SEC 2020, Uh, the court emphasized that perpetual existence is now the default corporate term under the revised corporation code. So the court also clarified the process for extending or reviving a corporate term, including requirement for SEC approval and the rights of dissenting stockholders to exercise appraisal rights. Now, kailan natin masasabi na dissolved na ang corporation? In Stablewood Philippines Incorporated versus CIR, okay, 2024, the court reiterated that a corporation is not considered dissolved kahit na meron na silang board approval, may concurrence yung stockholders nila, kung wala pang approval ang SEC doon sa amendment to shorten corporate term. Okay? And the amended term lapses, then the corporation is not considered dissolved. Diba there are ways to dissolve a corporation? One of these ways is to shorten corporate term. Tapos pag mag-lapse na yung term niya, the corporation is deemed dissolved. But it was clarified in this case. Kahit na sinorturn mo yung corporate term by amending the articles of incorporation, the SEC still needs to approve the amendment. Okay? Not complying with this procedure means that the corporation's action is not recognized by the state. So, the corporation, okay, is still liable for fees to the government as if it did not dissolve itself. Now, classification of shares. Well, if we talk about classification of shares, we are talking about a stock corporation. Okay. Section 6 of the RCC, okay, provides that shares may be classified into different classes or series with rights, privileges, or restrictions specified in the articles of incorporation. Further, states that no share may be deprived of voting rights except for preferred or redeemable shares unless otherwise provided by law. Furthermore, holders of non-voting shares retain the right to vote on specific corporate matters such as amendments to the articles of incorporation, mergers, and dissolution. Shares may have par value or no par value, but certain corporations are prohibited from issuing no par value shares. If you look at the provision itself in the RCC, mahaba po yung section 6. Okay? Mahaba po siya. But what we can learn here is that shares are classified into different classes and series. And the classification would indicate the rights as well as possible restrictions on the shares. Kung walang description yung share na binanggit or binili or sinubscribe sa isang corporation, kung walang classification yan, it is considered as a common share. Okay? One with voting rights. It's only when the shares have a particular denomination that a share may have restrictions. Like if the share is dubbed as preferred or redeemable. Pag makita na yan, there are restrictions there on voting rights. Okay? On voting rights. Now, on the issue of non-voting shares, katulad ng isang preferred share. So kung preferred share ba yan, ibig sabihin, in all corporate matters, hindi na nakakapag-exercise ng right to vote yung shareholder? The answer is no. Okay? In some corporate matters, in specific corporate matters, nakakapag-vote pa rin yung mga non-voting shares. Yung mga preferred or redeemable shares. Yung owners pa rin nila pwedeng mag-vote. So in what instances are non-voting shares allowed to vote? Dito, amendment of the Articles of Incorporation, mergers, dissolution, okay? Pwede pa rin mag-vote yung non-voting shares. Now, when we speak of preferred shares, they may have priority in dividends and liquidation, but are typically non-voting unless specified otherwise. Redeemable shares may be reacquired by the corporation under the terms set in the Articles of Incorporation. Founder shares, okay? Ito binibigay yan doon sa mga founders ng corporation. Okay? These shares may grant exclusive rights, well, as a form of paying back the efforts of the founders, such as voting privileges for a limited period not exceeding 5 years from incorporation. Treasury shares, previously issued shares reacquired by the corporation, which may be resold. Now take note of this 2009 case, Coco Fed versus RP, Republic of the Philippines. Court emphasized that non-voting shares retain voting rights. Okay. So kahit na non-voting yan, they retain voting rights on critical corporate matters. Okay? Like amendment of articles of incorporation, mergers, and dissolution. So this ensures that even holders of non-voting shares have a say or participation in significant corporate decisions. Okay. So we're done with classification of shares. I have a separate video detailing the discussion on shares. But for now, we'll just leave it as that. Okay. So before we proceed to the last topic tonight, let's have a 5-minute break again. Okay, so let's resume. Articles of incorporation, corporate name, and commencement of corporate existence. So these topics provide measures on how um, applicants or those who want to form a corporation will go through the proper registration process, okay? um, make compliances, and also after doing all these things, their corporate identity will also be protected. So, Articles of Incorporation. Ano ba tong Articles of Incorporation? Section 14 of the RCC outlines the required contents of the Articles of Incorporation. So, yung Articles of Incorporation must bear the following. It must indicate the corporate name, the purpose of the corporation, the principal office, the term of existence, incorporators, and the capital structure. Okay? The template is also provided by the RCC. So the code characterizes the Articles of Incorporation as the primary document for corporate registration. That's the main document to be submitted to SEC for registration. Now, how about one-person corporations? Okay, their articles of incorporation must include additional details such as the nominee, okay, and alternate nominee. So kung may mangyaring masama doon sa single stockholder, how will the one-person corporation continue its existence? Now, this additional detail in the articles of incorporation, okay, is a solution to that. Kasi mag-isa lang yung stockholder. So, in consonance to the concept of succession in corporations, there must be a nominee and an alternate nominee who will continue the functions of the single stockholder in case of his death or incapacity. Dapat na pangalanan yan sa Articles of Incorporation ng one-person corporation. So the Articles of Incorporation is a necessary documentary requirement that must be submitted to SEC for verification and approval. Now, an Articles of Incorporation could be amended later on, as one of the powers of the corporation is to amend its Articles of Incorporation. And the amendment must also follow the procedures outlined in the code. Okay, so Articles of Incorporation, that is the primary document for corporate registration, providing the corporate name, purpose, principal office, term of existence, incorporators, and corporate structure. Corporate name. Under Section 17 of the Code, okay, the law prohibits the use of corporate names that are not distinguishable from already existing ones or contrary to law. So the main requirement for the approval of a corporate name is that it is distinguishable. That's the key word, distinguishable. Corporate name must be distinguishable. Now, the SEC has the authority to reject or order the cessation of a corporate name that causes confusion as it is not distinguishable or violates existing laws. Okay, the priority of adoption rule applies. Okay, priority of adoption rule. Okay, granting the first registrant the right to use a corporate name. Okay, priority in time is priority in law. So parang sa civil code rin. Okay, first registrant has superior right than subsequent applicants for that the same or similar corporate. So again, applicants, okay, must come up with a distinguishable corporate name. Okay, commencement of corporate existence. So in here, we must discuss what is meant by organization and commencement of business, as well as the so-called delinquent status, okay, for non-operation, not stage 2, status, okay, of non-operation. So may stages rin. Okay, there are stages on how a corporation will, do business. Ang unang stage would be organization. Okay? When the corporation is already born, meaning when it already received, okay, the certificate of incorporation by SEC, it needs to organize itself. Okay, take note of that, organize. Magkaiba ang organization sa commencement. Under Section 21, okay, the RCC mandates that corporations must formally organize and commence business within 5 years from the date of incorporation. So kung na-receive na nila yung certificate of incorporation, the corporation has 5 years to do these things. Organize, that's one. Commence, that's the second one. Now, if a corporation did not organize and or did not commence business within this 5-year period from incorporation, then, okay, there is automatic revocation of the certificate of incorporation. Okay. So sinabi natin, magkaiba yung organization at saka commencement of business. So what is the difference between organizing the business and commencing the business? Organization involves acts capacitating the corporation to transact. So, to be more specific, a corporation organizes itself by electing its directors or trustees and its officers. The corporation organizes itself if it files its corporate bylaws if it did not yet file its corporate bylaws together with the articles of incorporation. Also, organization involves establishment of the physical office, establishment of the principal office. Okay? Providing subscription and payment of capital stock, organization rin yan. And all other steps necessary to endo this corporation with the capacity to transact the legitimate business for which the corporation was created. So yung mga actions that would capacitate itself to transact, okay, this is what we mean by organization, organizing the business. Ngayon, kung meron na siyang board, it's now ready to transact business. It can now commence business. And by commencing, it means performance of preparatory act, preparatory acts germane to its purpose. So ano ba yung preparatory acts na to? Examples are, entering into contracts or negotiations for lease or sale of properties to be used as a business or factory site. Making plans for and construction of the factory. Taking steps to expedite the construction of companies working equipment. So itong mga preparatory steps na to, which are germane to the purpose of the corporation, are considered part of commencing business. So organize, okay, these are acts capacitating the corporation to transact. Commencement of business, these are acts which are preparatory in nature that are germane to the purpose of the corporation. Both organizing and commencing must be done within 5 years from the incorporation. Failure to do so would result to the automatic revocation of the certificate of incorporation. In Lim versus Moldex Land Incorporated, okay, kailangan mag-comply ang mga corporations sa proper organization and operation of corporations. Okay. Electing directors. Okay. What is that? Organization or commencement? That's organization. So forming the board, organization yan. As it will capacitate the corporation to decide, to transact, to come up with its policies. Organization yan. Building physical structures for the business of the corporation. That's not yet operating, but that is commencing. Kasi pine-prepare mo yung corporation, okay, sa purpose niya. Okay? Now, aside from organizing and commencing business within the 5-year period, there is also a requirement for the corporation to actually operate. Okay? So if a corporation becomes inoperative for at least 5 consecutive years, the SEC and the may place it under delinquent status after due notice and hearing. Okay, the corporation is given 2 years to resume operations and comply with SEC requirements. Failure to do so, okay, results in revocation of its certificate of incorporation. Now, let me clarify this point. Under Section 21, there's a rule there. Di ba sinabi na natin na kailangan mag-organize at mag-commence within 5 years? Okay? Pag na-organize na at nag-commence na yung corporation at may compliance na within that 5-year period, the corporation must now operate. Okay? If a corporation does not operate within the period of 5 years, then it will be in a delinquent status. Yung delinquent status na yan will be imposed on the corporation, the inactive corporation, the non-operating corporation, after notice and hearing. Okay? So kung walang notice and hearing, a corporation, even if actually non-operating, cannot be considered as delinquent. So dapat may notice and hearing. Okay? Now, if the corporation, after compliance with notice and hearing, is placed under delinquent status, it must resume its operation within a period of 2 years. So mag-resume ng operation, and on top of that, must comply with SEC requirements. Ngayon, paano kung naging delinquent yung corporation pero hindi nag-resume ng operation niya and or hindi nag-comply sa requirements ng SEC. And that's the time that the corporation's certificate of incorporation will be revoked. Ulitin po natin yun. Okay, from the top. Within 5 years, the corporation must organize, commence, and operate. If a corporation did not operate, it could be placed under a delinquent status after notice and hearing. Under a delinquent status, a corporation must resume operations within 2 years and comply with SEC requirements. If a corporation did not resume within the 2-year period or did not comply, then its certificate of incorporation is revoked. Now, take note also, under the code, may mga reportorial requirements. Okay? And failure to comply with reportorial requirements, okay, for 3 times consecutively or intermittently within a period of 5 years would put the corporation under a delinquent status. That is in section 177 of the RCC. So aside from the requirement of organizing, commencing, and operating, in the latter part, section 177, may requirement rin ng compliance, okay, or reportorial requirements. Kung 3 times na hindi nag-comply within a period of 5 years, then a corporation will be placed under a delinquent status. And if placed under a delinquent status, ano na yung mangyari? Okay? Kailangan niya mag-comply. If it did not comply, then its certificate of incorporation will be revoked. Okay, I think we'll end at this point. We'll continue next meeting.